Just like flowers in a garden, we are all unique. Isn't that cool?
When I have a worry-filled mind, I like to wander outside. No telling what we might find. Birds calling, worms crawling, leaves falling down from above. Oh, I plant my feet on the ground. I keep my head in the clouds. I let my feelings out loud. I hear joy calling, fear crawling, tears falling down out of love.
Welcome, friends. My name is Mrs. A, and I'm so glad that you joined me today. Just at the beginning of this episode, I mentioned how we're all unique, kind of like flowers in a garden. But one thing that's not unique about us is our feelings or emotions, because as humans, we all feel a bunch of different feelings and emotions. Now, we may feel them at different times or for different reasons, so that is a little bit unique. But we do all experience lots of different feelings throughout our days and our weeks and our months and our years. And so we practice identifying those feelings together to help us build that muscle of knowing ourselves and sharing about ourselves, and to help us understand a bit better. And so today we're going to practice identifying what zone we're in. And zones are kind of a general way for us to understand or communicate or share our feelings. They're best used when we may not have the words for the feeling or emotion we're experiencing, but we have maybe how our body or brain is feeling in that moment, like literally feeling. For example, the blue zone is when your body or brain is feeling really slow moving. You're just not really able to get started with anything. You may be feeling heavy or tired. The green zone is when your body is feeling comfortable, focused, or settled. You're able to give your attention to a job or an activity. The yellow zone means that your body or brain is feeling a bit confused, starting to lose control, feeling distracted, a little bit worried or anxious. And the red zone means that you've lost control. You're not really able to think clearly or give your attention to something very easily. You feel really stressed or overwhelmed. There might be a lot going on in your head. There may even be a lot going on with your body, like a loud voice or big body movements. And so each of these zones are all okay. Like I said, us humans experience so many different zones and feelings throughout the day. And we practice identifying them so we can get better at noticing and sharing or communicating, not only with others, but also with ourselves. And so we're going to practice identifying our zone right now. So will you take a minute to listen to your body and brain? Try to decipher the messages that it's sending you. If your brain is starting to feel a little jumbled or confused, you're probably in the yellow zone. If your brain is feeling really clear and your body is feeling calm or settled, you're probably in the green zone. So let's take just a second and identify our color zone by grabbing an object that matches the zone that we feel like we're in. Did you find something that matches your color zone? Great. I have found this green Post-it, and I am feeling pretty comfortable and settled. I'm able to focus pretty well right now, so I'm in the green zone at the moment. But I wanted to share that I often will float between these zones throughout the day, but rarely will you ever see me in the red zone in a lesson or a video. Because when I'm in the red zone and I'm feeling out of control, I know that I'm not able to sit down and talk very well or share ideas or even read a story. So when I'm ever in the red zone, I usually have to do some things to help my brain or body feel more comfortable and feel more settled toward the yellow or green zone. And so it's important that we practice sharing the zones with each other anytime we're together and with all the people around us. But like I said, although I experience all of these different zones, You're never going to see me in the red zone in a video because I would not be able to do this work. I would not be able to sit and talk with you or make sense of my thoughts or ideas because I'd be feeling too out of control or too overwhelmed. And so there are lots of different tools and strategies that I use to help me, and we practice some of them together. One of them is actually exercising or moving my body, and we're going to do that together right now. Now, when we work out or exercise together, we always use the date to help us get started. But the date that you're watching this may be different than the date that I'm sharing it. So you can adjust or change those numbers as needed. For me today, it is 4/11/22. That means it's April 11th, 2022. And we're going to check in with Fig before we get started moving. Fig always shows us one of the moves that we'll do together. They don't tell us just yet. They ask us to use our critical thinking skills and maybe try to observe or imagine or test out what move they're showing. We'll check back in with them soon, but you can feel free to make your guesses as you think of them. To start us off, we're going to do 4 exercises together, and I thought we could do frog hops. Where I am on Turtle Island in the northeast, it is starting to become spring, and so frogs are going to be around soon. And so I thought we could do 4 frog hops. That means we'll have to kind of get low on our hands and our feet, and then jump up as if we're a frog. And we'll do this 4 times, but we're going to count by 2s. Let's do our 4 frog hops. 2, 4. Next, we have 11 exercises, and I thought we could really get our heart rate beating and warm up our muscles by doing 11 runs in place. So maybe you have a big space and it's okay for you to run around. That's fine. I only have a little space, and so I like to practice running in place. Go ahead and stand up if you're able, and let's count up to 11 as we run in place. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Awesome running. Now, Fig has our 22 moves. Fig, what should we do 22 of? Oh, side stretches. Thanks, Fig. You can do these sitting or standing. I think standing is more comfortable for me, and I get a better stretch. But either way works. All you have to do is put your hand on your side and stretch down to your toes. And then you can switch sides if you'd like. We're going to do this 22 times. And just like our number 4, 22 is even. So let's count by 2s as we stretch. Ready? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Amazing job. Big thank you for that side stretch suggestion. Now friends, at any time I move my body or exercise and raise my heart rate, I always like to cool down. And I do that by taking 3 cool down breaths. Go ahead and listen for a bell, and when you hear it, fill your belly big with air and then slowly let it out. Start to notice how your heart rate begins to slow down. Let's breathe. Thank you so much for trying that with me. I hope you feel a little bit more toward the green zone now if you weren't already. When we peeked at the date, I mentioned that it was April. And you may already know this, but you may not know yet that April is Autism Acceptance Month, or Autism Awareness Month. Maybe you've heard that. And autism is something that I wanted to tell you a bit more about today. So let's take a peek at the message to find out more. In this message, you'll see there are alliterations and onomatopoeias. Alliterations are words that are next to each other that start with the same sound or letter, and then onomatopoeias are sound words, so you can look out for them as I read. Dear, delightfully diverse and fantastic friends, are you or someone you know autistic? Autism is a word used to describe people whose brains work differently than people who aren't autistic. For example, an autistic person might have a super special interest that they like to learn a lot about, like bugs, movies, numbers, or anything else. Wow. Another autistic person may not like being held, hugged, or touched. Other autistic people might use devices or machines to talk, have helpers or therapists that they regularly work with, or need nothing fancy at all. Interesting. It sounds like autistic people, or people on the autism spectrum, are all pretty unique, just like non-autistic people. Don't you think? Love, Mrs. A. Do you know anybody who's autistic? Are you autistic? The autism spectrum, you may have heard in our message, kind of helps us understand or describe that everyone is a little bit different. Someone with autism might act one way or another way, and someone else with autism might act differently. And so there's a whole spectrum. That means there are lots of different ways that it might look or sound for each individual person. And today, we're actually going to read a book that is about a boy with autism, and his name is Noah. And I'm really excited to share this book with you because we'll get to read the whole thing together today. Special thanks to Red Leaf Press for giving us permission to read this together. And of course, thank you to Michelle Worthington and Joseph Cowman, the author and illustrator of this beautiful book. Noah Chases the Wind is all about a boy who wants to find out, where does the wind go? And as I mentioned, Noah is on the autism spectrum. He is an autistic person. And we're going to look and hear about his story right now. It's just a little glimpse. It doesn't tell us everything about Noah, but hopefully to help us understand a little bit more as we talk about and recognize Autism Acceptance Month. Noah Chases the Wind, written by Michelle Worthington, illustrated by Joseph Cowman. And again, thank you so much, Red Leaf Press, for letting us read this together. Noah Chases the Wind. Noah chases the wind. Noah knew he was different. He could see things that others couldn't, like the patterns in the dust that floated down on sunbeams. He could smell the green tang of the ants in the grass. He could feel when a big storm was coming before the leaves on the trees even started to tremble. Noah liked to find out how things worked, where they came from, and where they went. When he couldn't understand it, it hurt his head and his heart. Sounds like maybe Noah got frustrated when he couldn't figure something out. Sometimes when I'm frustrated, my head and my heart feel like they're hurting. His room was overflowing with books of every shape and size, on every subject he could imagine. Noah loved books more than he loved toys. His favorite books were about science, especially the weather. They taught him why rain clouds looked so angry, why the air buzzed before lightning struck, and why his skin turned darker in the summer sun. Do you like to read books too? Have you ever read about any of the things Noah read about? We have read together about why our skin gets darker in the warm, hot summer sun. If you weren't here when we read about that, you can go back and find my video from season 1 and check it out. Yet search as he might, none of his books could tell him what he really wanted to know. No one knew where the wind came from, but where did the wind go? His mother was usually more helpful than his books, but she didn't know either. "Why don't you try finding the answer yourself?" she said. So Noah sat quietly with his back to the trunk of his biggest tree and waited for the wind to come. How do you think he's going to find the answer to this question? Before the leaves on the trees even started to tremble, Noah felt a stirring deep inside. He stood, his face to the sky, and felt the whooshing wind build and blow his hair into his eyes. Noah took a deep breath. He was ready to chase the wind. He followed the wind as it whistled down his street, blustering around buses and bicycles and whipping wrappers from the gutter. He chased the wind as it glided over fountains, under bridges, and between people on the sidewalk. He is doing a really good job keeping up with this wind. It looks like it's moving quickly. He raced the wind as it picked up speed, building with the breeze from the beach and the heat from the highway, growing into a gale that lifted Noah off his feet. Each stream of air became a different color, and Noah was lifted high above the clouds. He floated on a blue, billowing breeze as the winds whirled and twirled around him in a never-ending ribbon of rainbow. The wind never stopped moving for a second. Do you think Noah is really floating through the sky, riding the wind around his neighborhood? I don't think so either. I think he's imagining and using his really special brain to think about this and think about the ways the wind is flowing. Until eventually, slowly, the blue breeze sank to the ground and Noah could feel the familiar grass underneath his feet. With a brush of Noah's cheek for goodbye, the wind was gone. Noah sat still until the sun sank below the tops of the trees and his mother called him in to dinner. "Where have you been?" she asked. Noah gave her one of his most loving smiles and said, "I know where the wind goes." And here at the end, there's a note from the author. Let's read it. Noah sees the world in a unique and special way. He's sensitive and perceptive, and he asks questions many people, both children and adults, would never consider. When he can't find the answers to his questions, it hurts his head and his heart. Have you ever felt similarly? When you can't figure something out, can't find an answer, or can't get something to work in the way you want it to? Children who see the world differently, whose perceptions are unique, sometimes struggle. It's the job of the grown-ups who care for and teach children to help them feel good about themselves for who they are. All children can learn to understand that being different is okay. In Noah Chases the Wind, my hope is that children who experience the world in a unique way, including children with sensory processing challenges and children on the autism spectrum, will recognize a part of themselves in Noah. The end. And as I mentioned, we were able to read this book together thanks to Red Leaf Press, and so I would love if you could go into the description of this video and grab yourself a copy of this book so you can share it with your community and your friends and your family. You can also get it from your library, of course. Libraries are a wonderful way to share and borrow different resources like books or sometimes even tools or instruments. Amazing. Another thing that's amazing is that even though we all experience the world in a slightly different way, and people on the autism spectrum or people who are autistic may experience it very differently than someone who's not autistic, there are different things that we can all try and do to help our brains and bodies feel more comfortable. And one of those things we do, and we always practice it together, is called mindfulness. And mindfulness is a way for us to almost ground ourselves, similar to how Noah was grounded when he felt the familiar grass under his feet. Ground ourselves really in the moment and really listen to our body and think about just what is happening in front of us, inside us, just at this moment. And we can tell ourselves some really helpful things, like we are safe, like we are loved, like we are smart, like we are kind. And the more we practice saying those things and telling our brain those things, the more comfortable we get with thinking about them and the more confident we feel in them. And sometimes being mindful is just taking a moment to pause and breathe or stretch or listen. And today we're going to practice a mindfulness activity that requires us to do some intentional breathing. And it's inspired by this book, Noah Chases the Wind. Now, we practice a lot of different types of mindfulness together because just like we're all unique, the things that help us feel good and help clear our minds are going to be unique too. Things that work well for me or feel good for my brain and body might not always be the same for you. And so there are lots of different things we can try and lots of different tools and strategies that we practice together. Like I said, today we're going to do a breathing mindfulness technique, and maybe it'll be a good fit for you. Maybe it won't. That's okay. You can always go back and check out my previous episodes or hit that red subscribe button and look for future different mindfulness activities. Today, our breathing activity is called Windstorm, just like the one from this book. And all we have to do is breathe in big through our nose and then make a windstorm as we breathe out. And maybe your windstorm is going to be whirling and dancing like the wind in this book. Or maybe your windstorm is going to be really steady and straight ahead. It could change up each time, however works best for you. We're going to do this for 5 breaths. And if you're able or comfortable, try closing your eyes or lowering your head. Let's breathe out our windstorms. Let's do it. Ready? Three more breaths. What did you notice about your brain or your body, how you're feeling? Yeah. Were you imagining floating through that windstorm like Noah was? Did it feel a little scary at first? Did it feel peaceful? Were you curious about how it felt different from the beginning to the end? There are so many different feelings that we experience, like I mentioned earlier, and all of them are okay to feel. It's really interesting and important for us to all notice and identify and share them, because then we can better understand ourselves and each other, just like we took some time to slightly better understand autism today. If you're curious to learn more, go ahead and do your own research. Grab some books like Noah does and talk to some people. Maybe you know someone who is autistic, and maybe they would be happy to help you understand them a little better. Friends, thank you so much for visiting with me today. I'm going to send you off with some love if you'd like it, a hug if you want it, and I can't wait to see you next time.